Yes, welcome back to the Magic Sponge Podcast, a miracle cure for all your rugby league injury issues. I'm Bryan. I'm the guy behind all the NRL Physio content you see on socials. My co-host, James, you are here. It is Sunday night. We're going to run through all the injuries. But, mate, it is Origin time. And we were saying off air, you're getting those pre-Origin jitters, mate. It's starting to flow through. We've left Magic Round behind. We're starting to get over that hump. But we're into Origin season, and yeah, mate, I'm up and about. I'm sure you're the same.
Yeah, I'm absolutely soaked. I'm frothing for it, but it's a point in case we have to say in Billy we trust. Feels a little bit less trustworthy than last year, given how it all unfolded last year. But I think game one at Suncorp, Bryan, I think the boys have got to get up and about for this one, because if we go down 1-0, holy dooly, it's getting a bit stressy then, isn't it?
Mate, I think the whole eastern seaboard of Australia is soaked at
Yes.
this point in time. It's
Isn't it what?
and I'll give New South Wales a bit of credit because I think they get soaked as well. Yeah, look, it's just good times. And as much as I love Finn Diesel, Felice Kafusi, I think there is a little bit of improvement in Billy's selections with the fact that he is not in the team to play like 12 minutes or he played last year. So, yeah, it's going to be a good series. I'm very, very keen. We've got the game 3 for the women's as well on Thursday night. So hopefully the girls can avoid a whitewash there. It would be good. I saw a stat. I think it was random rando said no New South Wales team has swept like since 2000 or something like that. So hopefully the girls can get that done. But yeah, look, short week this week with the injuries. I reckon it'll be our shortest one through there. We've got a few really interesting questions, especially in around SuperCoach and that kind of stuff. So as always, guys, we're on YouTube. Check us out there anywhere you get your pods. We're going to run through all the injuries from this week, loop it all back to SuperCoach, fantasy, those kind of things. So let's get into the injury wrap for this week, which is brought to you by Payne Pod, drug-free pain relief anyone can use.
I don't know exactly what he's done. I would have thought it was an ankle, but I'm just guessing.
He shouldn't be out for a long period of time. I'm no doctor. We have to wait for the scans, obviously, but that'd be more positive than negative.
Round 12, Bryan, sorry, I'll spit my words out properly. We're going to start off with the HIAs as per usual. So the 3 names on the list here, Luke Garner was late out. Almost a team list coming out on Tuesday, late out. Will Penisini was the next one, and Tom Eisenhuth, probably shout out to him in terms of his retirement from rugby league as well, Bryan.
Yeah, mate, just as always, you never like to see anyone forced into early retirement, particularly with concussion stuff, just the uncertainty around that. I think he kind of voiced that in all his post, retirement interviews that he made of just the uncertainty around, if I keep playing, what's that going to do? Where am I going to be at in 10 years regardless at the moment? Because obviously he had the concussion over the preseason, which lingered for a while, and then first came back, he had another concussion as well. So he was awesome for the Dragons last year. Just one of those guys who, isn't flashy and doesn't do those things, but, played most of the games for the Dragons last year. I think off the top of my head, and it was really good. So yeah, just shout out to him. Hopefully everything goes okay. By all accounts, he's symptom free now and all that kind of stuff. So hopefully it stays that way, and it's been a great, a positive decision for him and his family to move off into post-footy life. Luke Garner, yeah, mate, that was crazy. I think it was, he suffered because the team, as I understand it, teams submit their team list to the NRL earlier on Tuesday morning, and then obviously the NRL collate it and have time to write everything up and all that kind of thing, and then it gets released at 4:00 on Tuesday afternoon. So between that and 4:00, Luke Garner suffered a concussion at training. So his 11 days will finish, I think, the day before round 13. So if he passes through cleanly, he will be okay to play. And then, Will Penisini, he will miss next week because, that was category 1, and it was pretty clear. Another few dicey ones again, James, this week, where I even had one, I think it was the Jacob Arthur one. I'm not sure if you saw that one.
Oh, yes, I did actually.
Mate, where the arms went up. after he got hit, it was almost like that fencing response. And I don't have I'm not
Mate,
going to
Manly's
sit
had
here.
a couple
Yeah.
recently.
Like I
not
had
to-
there was a neurologist, a neuroscientist, and a sports doctor all message me within like 30 seconds being like, are you kidding me? What is happening? So it's I guess the big thing I would say to fans is like, it's not, and I'm a fan. I'm going to put myself in the fan because I'm not as smart as like a neuroscientist or a neurologist or even a sports doctor. But just to say to fans who are like, I guess frustrated with the whole process or not knowing, we have people who are very highly trained in this stuff who are also frustrated. So it's not just us. It, permeates across all levels of knowledge, I think.
Let's launch into the games next then, Brian. So Bulldogs and the Finns with a big old boil over here, Brian. I don't think too many people saw that sort of scoreline coming, but shout out to the Redcliffe Dolphins and everyone on the peninsula there. Out of this one, Ray Stone's been reported as AC joint injuries and Kurt Donoghoe with a broken nose. Not really too much to update from this game, really, apart from that, Brian, is there?
Mate, if I obviously, tip the Finns being a Finns man, but if I had to tip, I would have gone 30 plus. So I think I was pretty, pretty accurate there. No chance. I didn't even tip him. I didn't even tip him. I didn't give him, much of a shot because, as much as the Bulldogs were missing guys like, once we lost Gilbert last week and then, Hammer going to Origin, I just thought we're in all sorts. But to give him credit, and I will give him full credit because I am someone who earlier in the year had a real crack at him after a particularly poor game where he missed a bunch of tackles. But Ray Stone, mate, that guy, like, it's all vibes.
It's Ray testosterone.
Yeah.
Is what it is. It's not just Ray Stone. It's it's all man.
Mate. He is just vibes. And I think around Origin time, as we know, vibes are king, right? Like you just need vibes when there's, bit part teams all put together. He's been playing through AC joint sprains in both his shoulders over the last couple of weeks. As I understand it, they're not complete tears, but as we know, even partial tears, you're probably looking at usually like 2 to 4 weeks for that kind of thing. The one thing with AC joint issues is you can needle them up and play through, and it just comes down to pain management. And when you're a guy like Ray Stone who has no pain sensors in his body, you can seemingly just play through them. So he aggravated one of those AC joint injuries. They've got the bye next week. He gets a week to rest. So I just would be very shocked if he misses any footy. A bit like a lot of guys with AC joints. So moving forward, it's just going to be a risk of aggravation. But with these kind of things, because it's, pain management, a guy like Ray Stone who just has an insane pain tolerance and just loves putting his body on the line, he's probably going to play more often than not. Kurt Donoghoe with the broken nose. So I was actually in and out of watching this game at the start and was only keeping up via Twitter, really. And then I saw a whole bunch of tweets being like, Kurt Donoghoe has been ruled out. I think the sideline report was he's been ruled out. But then as I sent the post, everyone commented like, he's back on the field. So I looked and there he was. So deleted the post and had a look. And so, they passed his HIA, but it was the visibly broken nose. Like it wasn't just, maybe there's something in there. We got to get it scanned. You could see his nose kind of caved in almost. There was quite a significant dent in his nose. So, as I always say with broken noses, that they can just be horrific, but guys just very rarely miss extended periods of time. They would have done a manual reset in the sheds, which is something, look, that is only recommended when you are dealing, like I wouldn't do one, for example, James. Once again, I'll put myself definitely in the fan basket, in that if somebody was asking me to reset their broken nose, I would not do it. You want somebody who is very highly trained, has experience in that, because you're playing around with little bits of cartilage and bone and all that kind of stuff. But the doc has obviously popped it back in, and back out he goes. As long as his airway is not too blocked or anything like that, you can kind of get through. He'll get really swollen over the next couple of days. Once again, they've got the bye, so no real long-term implications there. I'll throw to you, mate. Would you, if you were sports coverage, would you reset a broken nose if someone asked you to?
No, I definitely would not. It would be straight to someone with a bit more expertise would be my advice there, Brian. So no resetting of noses would not be a fun time, that is for sure. Next game was Manly versus the Eels. Again, this is it's a week of boilovers, but I did not see this coming at all. Another Seabold masterclass in coaching here by getting the Manly boys really up for this one, clearly. The only injuries is Siosiua Taukeiaho had a calf concern for Manly. Have we heard grading on that, Brian?
No, I haven't. But like he didn't. I didn't see any. Like he didn't go down like a sack of spuds. So not that gives us much indication. But I think he's had a few lingering sort of lower limb muscle strain things this year. So it might be something. Like, it's very rare for a calf to kind of come back the next week. So yeah, just something to watch out for. There might be my big pod and my 80-minute middle, Jazz Devanga, mate, scored me 80 on the weekend. He might be in for more. How good.
Yeah, he went real well, didn't he, from SuperCoach point of view. Panthers versus Knights was the next game, Brian. So Isaiah Papali'i was ruled out pre-game with an MCL injury is what's been reported. Then Adam Elliott, sounds like a bicep tear. Paul Bryan with a shoulder concern. And Dylan Lucas, probably just a bit of an update about his shoulder concern that we mentioned on the podcast last week. Didn't stop him from scoring a triple, Brian. It was a pretty awesome effort. He dropped one over the line as well. So he could have gone nearly 200, really, when it was all said and done. Like, heck of a game by Dylan Lucas, but we did see evidence of, the concern about that shoulder moving forward, didn't we? All things considered.
Yeah, mate, it's he was phenomenal on the weekend, absolutely phenomenal, and I think my DMs jumped on over to Beers and Break Evens during the week and kind of gave similar analysis to what we gave on the show last week, and steered some people away from Dylan Lucas. So I apologise to anyone who is seriously considering him and didn't do it off the back of my analysis. But what I will say is that Dylan Lucas scoring 3 tries did not change the status of his shoulder, because as we saw with that third try, he got up and it wasn't really like, I would say, the full on landing on the outstretched shoulder that we saw with like Paul Bryan, for example. So it was a bit more of an innocuous mechanism, and you saw him hop up holding it, and he was doing the typical, like, trying to shift it back to where it was comfortable, like he was shifting that shoulder around. So not that this softens the blow for anybody who didn't jump on or anything like that, but that risk still exists. It still exists. It was something where with a Toby Couchman, as we've spoken about, that incident then caused him to miss 3 to 4 weeks. So with someone like Lucas, look at, like, I think, and I'll throw to you in a second with the SuperCoach implications, I think you probably have to jump on with that score and probably a pretty low break even and just the way that he's playing. But it's certainly not without risk. I think moving forward, we saw it shift again in this game. So that risk usually hangs around like quite elevated for kind of 3 to 4 weeks. So it's something, that I'll be keeping an eye on when Lucas plays. But unfortunately, doesn't soften the blow. Before we get to the other guys, mate, I will throw to you. So if you're not a Dylan Lucas owner, if you listen to some idiot physio who said he might be at an increased risk of shoulder injury, do you think you just have to jump on at this point? Or do you think, I haven't looked at his break even for next week, and I think it was like maybe 50 or something like that. So where are you at? Do you reckon you need to jump on Lucas, or can you keep avoiding?
Mate, it's a really good question because it's hard. Is like, we're both owners, aren't we? So we
Yep.
were both owners. So it's obviously one you hold moving forward. If you're not an owner and you're paying that much money, it's probably a coin flip. It depends how many other guys you got in your team that are high risk of injury. I think at the moment, like if you had a lot of guys coming off hamstrings, if you went the gauntlet on Tommy Turbo last week, if you got a lot of guys backing up for Origin, or maybe you're paying Haas in your setup, it's probably one that I would go away from. But when you look at, the output, the buy coverage, the position, it's dual. It's hard to say no, isn't it? I think it's, if you had to put a gun to my head and say in or out, it's probably in, with the caveat of, the injury risk is very high there, and it's just one you have to own. It's very similar to a Tom Turbo situation that we talked about exactly last week. It's, the injury risk is very real. It's there. You got to be willing to roll the dice, and come what may, when you make that decision, would be my sort of comment on that, Brian. Put your big boy pants on and make a decision and live with it and roll with it and take what comes of it.
Yeah, I think that's exactly what you're saying. It's that risk versus reward, right? Like we spoke about it last week on the show, being like, if he's at center, he's a sell because your reward is just so low. It seemed right, like his base was down. He scored like 30s or 40s last week. And to be fair, I said, if he's in the second row, he's probably a hold and those kind of things. Because I probably thought his ceiling was 90, 100 at that point. I certainly didn't see a 140-point ceiling in Dylan Lucas. So if his ceiling is 140 points, granted it was a Hattie, but even if you take one of those tries away, he's still looking at 110, like
110, 120,
115. Like, like if that's his ceiling, I think, yeah, that ceiling, as you said, it's like Tom Turbo. We're happy to take risks on Tommy Turbo.
Yeah.
So I think we're pretty happy to take risks on a guy who has 110, 120 point ceiling. Paul Bryan with his shoulder, yeah, popped it out like first tackle he was in, and that was your textbook. Arm above the head went, and you could see him, yeah, he was visibly struggling. Apparently he popped it back in himself, played on for a little bit, then it popped out again. So he came off at halftime. They got it back in, and he wanted to go back out there. So they've put him back out there, and he only lasted, I think it was 8 or 9 minutes, and then he's come off again. So I think the questions I've had around that, the usual thing, and a bit similar to Lucas, although Lucas's is only a subluxation. When it's a dislocation, you're very rarely going to see players play the next week because subluxation, it just shifts in the shoulder joint. It doesn't fully come out. Whereas a dislocation, it actually comes out of the socket. So coming out of the socket, it's going to cause damage. And that damage usually needs weeks on the sideline to rehab. So best case scenario, you're usually looking at 2 weeks out, strengthen up if it is a really, really minor one, can be up to 6. But this is where we start talking about the concepts of it's 2 to 6 weeks out, but then potentially he could get 6 weeks down the line, be doing the rehab, and the shoulder just doesn't stabilize and he needs immediate shoulder reconstruction surgery. He might delay shoulder reconstruction surgery till post season as well. So a bit of uncertainty there around a dislocation as such. A few people asked, was there any risk in him going back out there? And yeah, absolutely. Like if he goes back out and pops it out again, he could, do further damage. But it's one of those things where it's what's the cat in the box? And it's like, is the cat alive or not? I'm not sure until I open the box. It's like, well, you don't really know if you've done any extra damage because you don't have an MRI machine out there scanning him after the first dislocation and then after the second one. So it's kind of like they've got to do an assessment and see, once it's back in there, can we strap it up well enough that he's relatively protected? Is his function okay? And it's his debut game. That comes into it. Like, as much as I'm sure people sitting back don't want to, hear that. It does. It's his first game. He would have been chomping at the bit, like, do not rule me out. Do not rule me out. I'm going back out there. Obviously, the doctors have duty of care. And if it was like a concussion or something, a bit more significant than that, you can't send them back out there. But with a shoulder dislocation, you can strap it up really heavily and protect it quite well, at least in the short term. So I assume that's what they did. Adam Elliott, he came into the game with apparently a niggling biceps injury. He had it strapped up and everything, and then they reported it as a torn biceps. So this is one you talk about, like, risk of future damage. If this has gone from like a partial tear to a complete tear, yeah, here's your risk, right? We talk about risk versus reward. So if it is a tear, like a complete tear of the tendon at the elbow, it'll require surgery in 12 weeks. Hopefully it's not that, and it's more like they just report it as a tear, but it's just like a muscle tear or something like that. Because a muscle tear, you're more looking at like 4 to 6, no surgery. So hopefully that's the case for Adam Elliott because, the Knights need all the cattle they can get at this point in time. And then Papali'i, pre-game MCL, 2 weeks. So I think he'll miss 12 and 13, be back 14.
Yeah, it doesn't make. I was really curious about IPAP as a little buy for buy coverage, but Penrith they missed 15 and 18, I think, Brian. So they're not super sexy to get into your team at this point in time. Like they play the early one, which we just went through, but yeah, they're not really that attractive moving forward, and they're not really humming either. And I guess Ivan Cleary also plays edge roulette there quite a lot more than any other coach too. So there wouldn't be one I'd be looking at in terms of Supercoach options. Roosters versus Sharks, no injuries to report out of that one there, Brian. I guess Mulatalo's facing suspension on the sidelines and he's facing 3 to 4 weeks. So there might be maybe an opportunity for a Sharks
No,
cheeky there
no.
to keep an
Like, I
eye.
think it was only 1 week. And, mate,
Was it only one?
just
I thought it was
quickly,
more than that.
just quickly, mate.
Yeah.
I don't know if I'm talking off base here. We know I like to, but that Liam Henry tackle is the worst tackle I've seen this year.
Yeah, that was no good.
Like that, and to get
That
2
was a shocker.
weeks, I don't know what the suspension system is doing, because the big thing, and we always talk about, like, people are like, oh, at speed, like, things happen, they don't have time to react to that. And even with some crushes, it's like, players back in and like it gets caught up and whatever. This almost happened in slow motion, mate. Like it was slow motion where things were pretty much stopped, and he decided to jump up and jump. And I was like, oh man, that was rank for me. And to only get 2 weeks, so he got 2 weeks, and then I think I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure Mulatalo only got one as well, which I was surprised at that too, because he went he was pretty hard and high in his contact. So.
Yeah, anyway, one to watch, probably just from a team list point of view when you're planning ahead. Wales v Raiders was the next one, Brian. So Erin Clark, I didn't see mechanism of injury here for a lower leg concern, and DWZ has been reported as a wrist injury. I think the mechanism was similar to how he actually injured his wrist to start the season, Brian, wasn't it? Sort of fall onto an outstretched hand type mechanism, which is probably not a good sign given that's how he injured it. And he was out for, I think it was 12 weeks, wasn't it? So it's fairly complicated wrist hand surgery that DWZ had.
Yeah, so I'm definitely much more concerned. So Erin Clark, just quickly, straight up, I'd say was cramping. He's had issues with cramps so far late in games this season, and about 3 minutes to go, he limped out of a tackle a little bit, but then after that, he took like 3 hit-ups and was driving through his legs. So I would say he just cramped up a little bit. Happy to be proven wrong there, but yeah, that's because I just bought Erin Clark, so hopefully it's cramps. Maybe this is a bit of copium for me, but I would say that's what it is. DWZ, landed on the outstretched hand. He did finish the game, so hopefully it's not as bad as the one from the preseason, but I'm a bit nervous because it was like jumping up to take a kick, so he's coming down with a fair bit of force. So fingers crossed. I haven't gone back and clipped that one up yet, but I will do so over the next 12 to 24 hours. But yeah, it was a bit concerning. So, I mean, if there's a fracture there again, you're obviously looking at 4 to 6 weeks minimum. But yeah, hopefully he just jarred up a little bit of scar tissue from the previous surgery.
Yeah, fingers crossed. Yeah, he missed a long time at the start of the year, so we want to see him back and flying. Very lastly, Brian, we're going to wrap this state of origin concerns. I guess very quickly, Hamiso Tabuai Fidow has been reported as a knee cork, so that's probably nothing major to speak to there. Probably a bit of Queensland spirit. We'll see him at his very best. And then Payne Haas and Kalyn Ponga both reported as quad concerns. I guess Payne Haas was spoken about before. Kalyn Ponga is probably, I don't know, is that something he's brought into the week or something that's happened during the week? What's your source on KP?
Yeah, mate, I will disagree with you a little bit there in that I think the Hammer and Kalyn Ponga injuries are just grave, dire situations, and I think both boys will be in hospital leading into the game, and then have to pull drips out of their arms, and check themselves out of hospital, get to the game, win with Queensland spirit coursing through their veins. But it was funny. I was messaging Roasty because I put the thing up about, who was it? Herbie,
that was good.
discharged himself from hospital effectively to fly down and play for the Finns. And we were just back and forth, a bit of origin banter. And I found because obviously the original is Gilly in 95. Trevor Gilmeister, checked himself out of hospital and played. He was the captain and blah, blah, blah. There's a headline and it said, I could think of worse places to die than Suncorp Stadium.
Oh, it's the best. That's the best.
And I was just in tears. I'm like,
It's so
this
good.
is just amazing. Like, I love this time of year. It's just so
Yeah,
good.
mate. Just hook that to my veins. Don't worry about a drip. Just hook that sort of headline to my veins. That's top notch. That's the best.
Oh man, I'm in tears now. It's fantastic. But yeah, both of those guys should be fine. Ponga, no issues. He just sat out training earlier in the week, but should be all good. Payne Haas, yeah, look, like he's still considered a bit of a 50-50. He's been doing limited training so far during the camp, and then he's supposed to ramp up. I think it was today and tomorrow. So yeah, I'm still pretty confident he plays. It is a quad thing. The big thing, which we'll talk about in a second, is him backing up is probably the thing that's going to be a bit 50-50. But yeah, at this stage, I expect him to play, and I wouldn't expect him to be too limited by it. Potentially, he plays a little bit reduced minutes, but overall, I'd say all systems go for most of the guys.
Yeah, I think Laurie Daly in the presser today seemed more confident than not. He said Stefano Utokumanu is probably going to be the likely substitution if he doesn't come good. But I think, yeah, he's running him tomorrow, and I think they'll make a decision by tomorrow, is what Laurie said. So it won't be, I don't think it'll be a very last minute thing from what I gather. But yeah, it seems like a fairly straight like for like swap there if it does get to that. Nextly, Brian, we're going to do questions. So thank you for everyone for submitting the questions through the broadcast channel as per usual. We'll just launch straight into it. Hey, Brian, because we've got a fair few to get through tonight. But in terms of looking ahead to next week, are there any Supercoach players you think that are more risk of not backing up due to injury? I guess we've talked about a few in the Origin contingents there. What are your thoughts on non-backer-uppers?
Yeah, so Payne Haas is a big one. I think, yeah, like it's such a delicate balance with a lot of these teams in that if the Bronx were top of the table, mate, Payne Haas wouldn't be playing next week. I can
Agree.
pretty
Yep.
confidently say that, yeah, if they were first or second and they were flying and they'd won like 4 or 5 in a row, there is just absolutely no way they would risk him off this. But this is where, yeah, the intrigue comes in, right? It's risk versus reward. Now, the risk of a quad injury, I would say in my time, I couldn't tell you more than 2 or 3 quads that have gone from minor quad injuries to like major quad tears by players playing through it. So it is quite rare for it to result in significant, like 6+ weeks on the sideline if you play through. It's more like, oh, he's aggravated it, he needs a week off or something like that. So maybe you risk a week or two if you're playing through it. But yeah, it is one that it'll depend how he pulls up out of Origin, how many minutes he has to play. But I just think of the lot, he is probably, yeah, obviously one of the one with the most hanging over his head. Effectively, Stephen Crichton with his groin, he's been playing through it, and he's had effectively 10 days of no footy leading into Origin. I know Origin is huge, but 10 days is great to be able to manage loads and those kind of things. So I would say he's a pretty good chance of backing up. The ones who I kind of lean away from are the big hamstring ones from earlier in the season. So guys who are fit and healthy. But yeah, Harry Grant, Latrell Mitchell, Brian To'o with their hamstring injuries, they all had pretty significant hamstring injuries earlier this year. That they've only just, I think Latrell's been back for the longest, so he's probably the guy. And once again, South probably need him, those kind of things. But I think with hamstring issues, load is the biggest thing. And by load, playing 2 games of big minutes in 4 days is going to put quite a lot of load through those hammies. So I'd look at Harry Grant probably being the most likely to rest of those, because once again, you Latrell and Brian To'o, their teams really need them at this time of year. So that will push them a lot. Dylan Edwards is another one. He had groin strain recently and hamstring tightness, but once again, Penrith in a spot of bother, so they might need him. And then the only other one I'd mention was Mitch Moses with his foot injury. I know he's been back now and doing really well, but load is part of it. Once again, it's something. It's that accumulation of load over time on that bone and that plate, or that screw that he's got in his foot. So he's another one who I'm a bit wary of. But once again, Para not going great at the moment, so might be happy to kind of roll the dice a little bit there. So yeah, I think effectively what I'm saying here is injury risk isn't everything at this time of the year. I think teams are that they're going to run the gauntlet at times depending on how they're going. What's your read on any of those? Do you think are there any that I've kind of missed, or any that I'm off base on there?
No, I think you're on the money with all of them, Brian. The only other one I thought was Xavier Coates, who's got the history of hemis and more so hamstrings actually in the past.
Yeah.
Hey, Brian, like I think it was last year and a bit this year, and like you said, given the Storm is sitting pretty, I wonder whether he'll be one that sits out or not. The table's fairly condensed, right? I don't think there's too many teams that are got that luxury of resting a huge amount of players to begin off with. So no, I don't think there's anyone else apart from that I can think of in that sort of sense there. Question number 2 is a good one. I really want to launch into this. Is about Tommy Turbo. Looked like he was over his cork, but still not completely confident in how he was going. What did you make of his performance the other night?
Yeah, mate, I think this is a really good one to throw back to Dylan Lucas as well, for example. Like it's one of those things where a SuperCoach score, like we talk about the impacts that injury and performance and physical capabilities have on SuperCoach, but it's like a SuperCoach score doesn't solve things and Tommy Turbo is the perfect example here, because if Lehigh Hopewadi gets that ball down without his forearm touching the line like a microsecond before, I don't reckon anyone has any problems with Tom Trbojevic. It's not even a discussion, because he would have scored 100 or 9, and everyone would have been happy. Everyone who bought him would have been like, "What a decision! I absolutely nailed it." And everyone who didn't buy him would have been like, fuck, I really should have bought Tommy Turbo. What an idiot! He was 550K, blah blah blah. But because something happened that was completely out of Turbo's control, now all of a sudden it's everyone's talking about it still. It's like, he didn't look good in this, he didn't look good in that. And look, like I'll admit there were signs where I was a little bit like, oh, the old Tommy, and the big one was he got one-on-one on a sweep play, and nothing against Jordan Samrani, but Jordan Samrani should not be able to stop Tommy Turbo 5 meters out from the line one-on-one and take him over the sideline, but he did. And so that one, for me, I was like, oh man, the old Tommy just would have absolutely blitzed him and scored that. So there were signs there where he's probably not quite 100%, but I still thought it was a big improvement on, the previous weeks where, look, we got this whole story about the quad from Tony Siebes, which, mate, as we've spoken about, a good friend of the show, big fans of his. We are on the sponge, Tony Siebes. Don't know if you can trust what he says as far as, the front door, but it would make sense from what we've seen from Turbo over the last month. I mean, it is like 3 to 4 weeks now that cork has lingered around. So it is on the longer end for a cork. And you could argue maybe mentally he's still not quite 100% in terms of how hard he's hitting those lines and stuff like that. But the big thing that I love to see from him in terms of his confidence was him taking just hit ups, which he hadn't been doing in previous weeks. Like he had been avoiding that at all costs. Whereas I found he was just trucking. He was just taking the ball and trucking it up, which to me says he's happy with contact, those kind of things. So I think overall, I wouldn't say he's at 100% yet. And when do I expect him to be at 100%? I'd say and we're assuming that the cork line is true, which I think from what we've seen so far, I can see that being plausible, because I've had a lot of people ask, like, surely that's not it. But he played without tape this week. So I think it's very unlikely that it is his knee still bothering him, because if it was, I assume he'd probably still need that mental confidence of having the tape there. But I can see a story that it is the cork, and I would hope that next week or the week after we see Tommy Turbo go out there and absolutely brain it. I haven't bought him yet. It was one of those things for me, and we'll talk about what I did in SuperCoach later. But the whole cork story, it wasn't enough to get me over the line to buy him, but it was enough for me to not buy Teddy and kind of give it a couple of weeks with Tommy Turbo's break even. I think it was 100 something this week. It's about 80 something this week. I'm happy to watch him again this week is my approach. I'm happy as a non-owner playing the Bronx, the mighty Bronx, James, so it's not a cakewalk, you would think, but I'm happy with an 80 break even to just chill out, have another look at him this week. I might live to regret it, but I'm happy to wait until I see the 100% Tommy Turbo. I think he's on the way there, but not quite there yet. I mean, you bought him. I'm sure you don't tie it too much to the SuperCoach and more look at that at that capability side of things. How did you feel as a buy, and what would your advice be to someone like me who hasn't bought him yet?
Well, as a buyer, I'm pretty stoked, to be fair, because I thought a lot of the criticism was fairly overblown. I think we just have to keep the context here, Brian, in my brain as well, and people disagree with me. Fair play, like whatever. But I guess he's coming off a game where they just travelled down from North Queensland, so probably a bit of a shorter turnaround. You got extra travel, so that does take it out of you a little bit on turnaround. It's a wet weather game. Manly were going terribly that night. They weren't doing anything constructive or anything good with the footy. It was really give it to Turbo
Really
and hope for the best.
unlike a Tony Siebes team, mate.
Unbelievably, poorly prepared. It was just a dreadful output. And you said, wet weather game, the output was still high, the hit-ups were still there, but Manly weren't creating very much. So I think with all those things considered, I thought he looked pretty decent. You can say, "Oh, he wasn't strong through contact, he wasn't this or he wasn't that." I didn't think it was that bad. And really, as you said, if Lehigh Hopewadi gets that last one down for that third try, then he's sniffing 100. Where you're going, okay, what a great trade, what a good trade in. I'm pretty happy to have him through the bye period coverage. I don't think there's going to be, an opening for New South Wales there for him. I don't believe it. A lot of people say he's one injury away. I don't know so much if he's one injury away. It'd be interesting on Laurie Daly's perspective on things there, and how they perceive his performance coming out of this game. But I thought wheels up. I think if you're not an owner, he's going to be close to 500 grand. I mean, you can do worse. I guess the only other thing would be depends on what fullbacks you're running. If you're sort of someone who can trade Iongi down to him, I think that's a no-brainer. I think you can just bank money and just bank a guy who's got a really good ceiling. If you had Drinkwater, perhaps, and Teddy, I probably wouldn't. I think that'd be the only thing. If you had that setup, then I think that's the alpha setup that you got for the three fullbacks. So you may not be able to squeeze him in. I am pretty happy to have him at the moment, and I think it's only going to get better in the short term. So I thought the criticism was fairly overblown there, Brian, to be honest. And I think when you think the context as well, travel, wet weather game, Manly going horrendously. They were probably the worst team on the weekend for mine. They were a million miles away from wanting to be there at Combank the other night. They were dreadful. So I tend to think you're probably going to get a better output with sunny weather. Home, Manly are always 20% better at Brookie. Always, always, always. So them on the road, I think you just write off and say, well, wasn't the best output, but there is a bit of context around that. Any other things you want to add on from a Turbo perspective there, mate?
Are they at Brookie? Are they at Brookie next weekend against the Bronx?
They are, I believe.
Oh,
I think
that gets me really interested,
I'll
James.
double check that. Hang on, let me just say.
That gets me,
I'm pretty sure
at Brookie's
it
a
is.
different beast.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, so they got Broncos at 4 Pines, then they've got the Knights on the road, Titans on the road, into a bye. So they've done a little bit of travel as well. So yeah, they did, Townsville just before this round. So whether there was, a little bit of a letdown, it was a 6-day turnaround as well. So not short, but not, the full 7 days there. I think you can sort of put a bit of context on his performance there as well. And I don't think it was as bad as anyone says. If he just, if there's one more put down and Manly just don't throw the ball away every second set, he's probably going to score 100. I don't know. I don't think it's the worst get at all. And at price, I don't see how you can really pass it up there. To be honest, would be my call. I want to move on to Carter Gordon, mate, because we can talk to him next. So Carter Gordon had surgery this week for what looks like a cerebral spinal fluid leak, which was diagnosed as a dural tear for those nerds playing at home in the physio realm. But does this mean that his season is over now that he's had surgery to correct this fluid leak, Brian?
Yeah, so it's actually, as much as surgery on your spine can be positive, all the news so far is really positive. So effectively he was back running, and that was just purely as like a test to see, is this tear going to heal? Is the spinal fluid going to keep leaking? Unfortunately, it was. So they decided, yep, surgery is the way to go. By all accounts, they flew him over to Perth to, one of the best surgeons in Australia over there. And all the reports from him are extremely positive. So he found the tear, fixed it up really, really well. He's really happy with it. The prediction is at the moment that he'll be back to some form of training in about 4 weeks. He's hoping to get back to contact in about 8 to 10 weeks. And then he's hoping to have some games at the end of the year. So I think that's the one thing about surgery. If surgery is successful, and when, sometimes you hear successful surgery and you think like every friggin' surgery is successful. But when you're talking about something like this, that's not the case. Like every surgery is not successful when we're talking about stitching up the dura in around the spine. That's like to have confidence from the surgeon is huge. So I think, look, the deconditioning is the biggest thing for me. How is he going to be able to build that back up with so much bed rest and stuff over the last couple of months to a point where he's going to play footy later in the year? They are NRL athletes. They're working around the clock. So, I wouldn't be surprised if he gets a couple of games at the end of the year, but I'd be surprised if it was in NRL. I think it's more than likely to be in Q Cup at this point in time. What are your thoughts, mate?
It's a good point you make about the reconditioning stuff, Brian. I really want to see, Carter just, have a good run, and hopefully he can get some games, whether that's in Cup or NRL towards the end of the year. I do agree with you. I think it'd be unlikely for him to play NRL by the end of the year, but the only other thing that would really improve the aesthetic there, or maybe improve his output, would be a tattoo sleeve, Brian. Just get him full rugby league, get him away from rugby union, just get a bit more ink on the arms, and then get in the gym and get massive. So hopefully for Carter Gordon, he can hit the rehab hard and tatty up, and we'll be rock and rolling there for the Titans come 2026, maybe at his very best. The other Titan who we need to talk about here, Brian, is Keanu Keeney. So he was back at training and running. Does that mean he's ahead of schedule after neck surgery?
No, on schedule, mate. It's pretty standard. We're getting towards, I want to say, we're about 8 to 10 weeks post-surgery now. So, pretty much on schedule. The biggest thing is he has a scan at 12 weeks post-surgery, and that's the big scan, to make sure everything's where it should be, everything's looking good. If he gets the all clear at 12 weeks, that's when he can really start ramping things up. But I think we've spoken about on the show in the past, it then comes down to, if the Titans are dead last, the big thing I noticed with him, you talk about deconditioning with Carter Gordon, mate, so good to see Keanu Keeney back running, but how tiny did he look? He has
he did look slender.
Yeah, he's lost some kegs there. So there's going to be that component to build that back up. Look, the comp is a close one at the moment. Even Penrith, who are in last at the moment, they're 3 points off 8th. So, there's not much in the comp at the moment. It's a bit like the Origin backups for me in that, there's a purely physical thing where I'm like, look, it'd be great to give him to next season to kind of fully recover and those kind of things. But the Titans are only 2 points out of the 8 and it's round 22. You've still got 5 weeks left. Do you get him out there? And he might not quite be at 100%, but, is an 80%. I mean, they do have AJ Brimson at fullback, James, and we know how we feel about AJ Brimson at fullback on this show. What an absolute gun. Although he has, betrayed us.
Allegiances. Yeah, I know. Traitor, turncoat.
What the hell? That is just so disappointing. But I think I think I get a lot of questions about Keeney week in and week out for draft, and I don't I think any league that he's a free agent in, for me, I haven't picked him up, because it's just, for me, it's maybe I might pick him up if things are sounding good, in the teens somewhere, where it's I've got a really stacked team and I just want to throw a dart throw on the bench potentially. But at this point in time, I think even if he comes back, we've seen guys who have that neck surgery be a little bit hesitant into contact to start with. So I just worry that he wouldn't quite be at 100% either. So I think that, where would you be for draft? Are you maybe if your team's absolutely stacked, you throw him on there as a dart throw? But I'm not desperate to go out and get him at this point.
Yeah, only if you're stacked, and only if you don't play buys, I think, would be the other thing. So if you don't play buys, you don't have to worry about buy rounds. I would just maybe put him at, on the end of your bench there perhaps, but it wouldn't be something I'd be looking to do. And I'm the same as you. I'm in a couple of comps and I haven't got him or picked him up where he's a free agent. Next one, Brian's about Toby Couchman. So there's obviously a risk of injury on his return from a shoulder subluxation, but he's got very good buy coverage. Would you buy him when he's potentially back there for the Dragons?
Nah, not for me. There's a lot of good options in the front row, second row. I mean, look, I think there's a lot of guys asking this question for NRL Fantasy, where Toby Couchman is an out-and-out gun. So maybe you consider him in that kind of comp where like he's one of the best. Like it's once again that risk versus reward, but just to show you like the risk for me, like he's just a no-go because there's other fully fit and healthy options with not as much upside in Supercoach. So it goes back to the Dylan Lucas conversation, right? Where now it's looking like he has this massive ceiling and is what is the best option at CTW. So you probably take that risk with the re-injury hanging over his head. But with a Toby Couchman, for me, he's not the primo option in his position. So it's not something that I'd be considering. What about you?
No consideration here either. You got better options in front row and second row. And given the position he plays, his injury risk is higher. So I think different to Dylan Lucas there again, with the position he plays, he's going to be higher risk of re-injury. So that would be my takeaway there. Next one. Do you think Dave Fafita will be back to his best when he comes back from ankle surgery? What about Maxi Plath as well? Are they worth a look in Supercoach this year, Brian? What a landmine of a question here for a couple of boys I would have hoped were wearing Queensland maroon, but they're miles away, aren't they, really?
Yeah, mate. For me, that I'd want to see them both. We don't actually know what Plath's injury is. They still haven't, they still haven't given us any indication. So we know it's a foot injury. We don't really know anything other than that. That's all we know. So I just off the back of that, like I couldn't jump on him straight away. I mean, to be fair, the Finns are going to need him to play huge minutes at some point in the next 10 to 12 weeks while Gilbert's out. So he'll have the opportunity, but yeah, like he's just someone for me. And then for Feeder, I mean, you've got the ankle stuff, you've got the relationship with Des, the asking to switch. Like, yeah, it's just I mean, you're someone who was badly burnt by Fafita, so I'll throw to you for this one. But even someone who hasn't been badly burnt by him, I just think once again, it's a bit like Turbo. I'd need to see it from Fafita before I go there. Yeah, what would your take be on those two guys?
It would definitely be a see it with Fafita. I got absolutely roasted by him at the start of the year, to my absolute shock and surprise. I think he might be one that you pencil in your black book for 2026 for Supercoach. For draft, I'd be happy if you had a good team, you'd take a flyer on him if you wanted to trade him and recoup some value there, or if you were struggle street and you wanted to move him on for a bit of value. I think that's a fair thing to do at this point in time. Maxi Plateau, Brian, like I think the Finns, they sort of get a little bit less attractive with their buy coverage. They do have around 21, don't they? So they're not the worst in terms of their buy coverage. But again, we have no indication of when Max Plath will be back and then what his minutes look like. Who knows? I think it's just a wait and see approach for when they both get named would be my call. Fafita's still a couple of weeks away. Plath, we have no sort of set time frame. I thought he'd be. Well, they got the bye next week, so maybe around 14 at best. But still, we will have to wait for team list to see what goes on there. Next question, Brian's about the Cowboys and their injuries. Any updates on Murray Taulagi, Jason Taumalolo, their return dates? We obviously know there. The other question is about Hylam Lukey, but we know that he's out for the year with the ACL, don't we?
Yeah, so I think a few people asked this because his ACL was in December, and there have been some people or some NRL players have returned from 6 months. But yeah, like this is Lukey's second ACL injury. We don't know which knee it was in because it happened at training. But yeah, second ACL, young fella. They're going to take 9 months, I would assume. So yeah, season over more than likely for him. I think the Cowboys have kind of become the Warriors of old, mate, where it used to be the Tasman Sea that all injury information melted away. I think it's the Capricornia region.
Capricorn.
Yeah,
the Capricorn and
the
above.
Capricornia region, mate. It just seems to, swallow any injury information because there's just such little. I'll be honest with you, where I get most of my Cowboys injury info is Todd Payton will do like a little 2 to 3 minute like pre-game. It's like the day before their game video on the Cowboys website, and he every now and then will talk about an injured player. That's about it. It seems to be the only time that we get it. By all accounts, they absolutely hate my guts up there throughout the media and the performance and medical departments. So there's no chance of me, weaseling any information there either, unfortunately. So I've just got nothing on either of them. I don't think anyone has anything by the sounds of things. So yeah, keep sending emails to the Cows and try and get them to sort themselves out because once again, it's only robbing the fans.
That's very true. I was just curious about Highland Lukey there, Brian, because my recollection was, this is a bit of a tangent for those playing at home, but Mick Hughes, who's an ACL rehab guru, my understanding was he's based up in Townsville now. So I wonder if he's having a front seat to Highland Lukey going through the works there. So I guess if you had to back on someone getting back to their best for next year for Supercoach, put this one in your black book. Highland Lukey is under one of the absolute wizards in terms of ACL rehab up there. I think, Brian, is that the case? Do you
It
know
is. Yeah,
if
yeah,
Mick's
yeah.
linked in with the club?
I don't. He is linked in with the club. I don't know if he's like. I assume like he's not.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's not the Cowboys physio or anything like that, but I know he has involvement with the club, so I would assume he has some involvement with Lukey's Lukey's recovery and give me a Mick Hughes, mate, over any international jaunts any day of the week.
Absolutely. One of the out and out absolute jets of the profession there for those who don't know Mick Hughes in physio circles. Next one, the last one I should say, or not last one actually, Brian. We've got a fair few more to go here. I've just got to scroll my page down because we've got so many. But Teague Wilton, has there been any delay in his return? He's been named in the 21 for the last 2 weeks, but he hasn't played. So AC joint injury was Teague Wilton's initial injury. I think that was about 4 weeks ago now, Brian, or maybe 3 at least.
Yeah, mate, he just needs some Ray Stone, I think. Just needs a little bit of pain management. Look, like this is the nature of AC joint injuries. He would have been named 2 weeks ago because there's very low risk in playing through AC joint injuries, but it's just getting the pain down. So, and they're super painful. That's like, like I make the joke, he needs some Ray Stone. Like this is no slight on Teague Wilton. It's more like Ray Stone's an absolute fucking maniac because these are, I know we hear about players playing through them all the time, but they are super painful. It's just going to be to try and get the pain down, and it can linger for 2, 3, 4 weeks. It can be quite an extended period. Like I would say now, if he was named 2 weeks ago, I would be thinking next week, or they've got the bye next week. So I'd say it's the week after. You can pretty much lock and load that, I reckon.
Yeah, agree with that, Brian. Next question. This is a good one. What do you think's been the most impactful injury to hurt a club's performance so far this season? This is a great question.
Yeah, I love this question. And I think my first one's probably going to be a bit of a controversial one because they are doing okay, which is Cam Murray for Souths. Like I think, South's still doing really well in the face of so many of their injuries. But I just think if you had Cam at lock and just, running the show, mate, I reckon they'd be right up there. I think there'd be, Wayne at the helm. He's sprinkling that magic dust there week in and week out. I really think South would be, top 4 if Cam Murray had been fit all year. I'm happy to say that. I think that's been a big one for them. And then the other one, which I've got to go the Homerisms, mate, is Tom Flegler. Like every week I watch the Finns and I just hope and pray for Tom Flegler. Like he just is like that. It's exactly what I'm missing. A young, energetic middle who can just play 50 minutes and just punch the front teeth out of people. And we just don't have it. I mean, Dan Saifiti's been good. It's just, to have Tom Flegler, I don't think all of a sudden the Finns would be top 4 or anything like that. But I think in terms of hurting a club's performance, and the Finns are just so lacking that big middle to dominate a game. Yeah, they're my 2 nominations. You've got some crackers. What are yours?
Yeah, mine are very vibey. One's the home team again. We're stuck with the homerisms there. But Reece Walsh, since he's been injured, the Broncos in their red zone attack especially have been by far, by the length of the street, the worst in the comp. So, you can point to Reece Walsh not being great in the yardage game. You can point to him, the antics and stuff like that, whatever you want to point to. But there's no question that he is extremely good in the attacking red zone. He's extremely good ball in hand. He's extremely good hitting those 3-on-2s. Without him, we are an absolute shell of a team. We just don't have any ability to make anything happen in the red zone. We watched Magic Round, the Broncos game, Bryan, against the Panthers. They had so much ball, and it was just awful. It was like amateur hour. Every time they spun it one way or the other, no one was in motion. No one was, making defenders sweat. It was just bad to watch. The other one's Keanu Keeney. We talked about him earlier, but the downgrade from him, at fullback to what the Titans have been trotting out has been really significant. And he was so electric last year in terms of what he brought, kick returns, his ball playing skills, his ability to break a tackle, break the line. He was electric. And I like, Sam Walker's another one. I think I've chosen 3 there rather than 2, but the back end of last year, Sam Walker was playing really good footy. I think if he was lining up for the Roosters this year, I think you'd see the Roosters be a bit more consistent. They're still going okay, the Roosters. I'll give them credit here. I thought they were going to be dreadful, but they've shown signs of life here and there throughout the year. They've been a bit up and down, but they do have a very young team. So I think, from a Queensland point of view, especially, Brian, we want to see Sam Walker at his very best, don't we? We need an Apex 7 to come through real quick because, Daly's lining up there, but if he's not going well, then we could be in a bit of spot of bother. Hey, Brian.
100%, mate. Sammy Walks, you won't find a bigger fan of him than you, but I love him as well. I think I just pale in comparison to yourself.
Yeah, it's a fair shout. Next question, Brian's about Christian Tuipulotu. Is any chance he's back? He's got really good bye coverage for SuperCoach, doesn't he?
Yeah, mate. I was just looking up as this question was coming up, his kind of schedule and those kind of things. Like he's supposed to be back 13, 14 in that range. It is his second hamstring injury for the year, high re-injury risk. Mate, his break even's 39. So in the game when he suffered that hamstring injury, he scored 95 in 60 minutes. So it means that, like his break even is very achievable. I mean, usually my approach to guys is coming off hammies is to give them 2 weeks to get out of that re-injury risk. But I think almost with him, you might have to go early. The only thing, and maybe whether I haven't paid as much attention to Dragons games, but they don't seem to be doing that left wing, like that shift to the left wing. Like Gutho hasn't been as involved in that shift to the left wing, whether that's because they've only got, and I say only, Origin legend Corey Allen, Queensland Origin hero, playing on the wing there, and whether if Tuipulotu comes back, they start shifting left a lot more. But yeah, like I like him. I like him as a point of difference, like a good bye cover, playing on that left wing. I'd have to go back and I probably wouldn't look at it myself, but get someone smarter than me to try and figure out whether they've been scoring tries on their left as often since Tuipulotu has been out as when they did when he was there. But yeah, I like him. What about you?
Yeah, I love the play. I think the Dragons only have one more bye, and it's in round 16, which is a mini bye. So, if he's named foreseeably in, 13 or 14, I'd be looking long and hard there, to be honest. I'm sort of hoping and praying that Turbo can really have some ballistic weeks and I might be able to go through the flex to get Tuipulotu in, or I might have to look at getting a centre wing upgrade or two in there. My Connor Tracy and Jesse Ramian Magic Round plays are not exactly working out for me, Brian. They're both hemorrhaging cash at the moment, so they were very
Talk to me
vibey for
about
Magic
Paul
Round.
Alamotti, mate.
Oh my goodness, yeah. Okay, we can share war stories there in a second in SuperCoach Corner, but yeah, my Magic Round plays are not going very well for me at the moment. I'm going to have to move them, otherwise I'm going to bleed cash deluxe. Next one is about the Knights. They look pretty good with Fletcher Sharp fullback compared to Ponga. What do you make of that?
Yeah, mate. Like they look really good against a Penrith side that was, like they're not Penrith, right? They're like, So yes, they look good. But like I just think comparisons like this are always really hard during Origin time. I think like during Origin time, as I said, it's all vibes. It's all vibes. There's not much. Like if you think the footy was any kind of logic this weekend, all 5 underdogs won. Like that says it all to me. Like, yes, they looked great. And I can already hear the arguments of Sharp should be at fullback and all that kind of stuff. But I just think during this period, logic goes out the window and you just have to appreciate it for the vibes. I don't think there's much analysis that holds much weight during that's my personal opinion anyway, is that I don't think you can take much from the Origin period because it's just all a bit illogical and just very vibey. What did you think of them?
Yeah, I tend to think the same. I think it's just a one-game sample. I think Sharps looked good at 5'8" this year as well. And Kalyn Ponga had a couple of good games to start the year and then, sort of cooled off a little bit there for the Knights, but they still chop and change their halves every week, Brian. There's still rumblings in the back room there of disharmony. At the end of the day, I don't know. I don't know if they're going to be able to solve it all this year, the Knights, really, to be honest. Like, it's a sort of a get out of that situation from a super coach perspective, I believe. To your point about Origin footy, it's not only that there was boilovers this week, it's just like they were massive boilovers too. Like teams weren't even in the hunt. Like we talk about, the degenerates there were 13 plus, but all these games were way over 13 plus even. So it was a bit of a wild old weekend from a footy perspective, that's for sure. Next one is about thoughts on an Origin game being played in New Zealand, Brian. Please don't do that to us. Please. I just want to see it in Brisbane and Sydney, if I'm honest. Like, that's just because I'm greedy and I love the product and I love going to games. And when there's only one game, per year in Queensland, I get really disappointed. So that's my takeaway on that one, Brian. What do you reckon?
I've got a really good one because like the selfish person in me agrees, right? Like I totally agree. But I when I read this question, I asked it because I knew we'd both have the same. Like we love it being played in Queensland and New South Wales. But what I want to put to you is a Sophie's choice. They either have to move an Origin game every year, or they have to move Magic Round. Which one would you choose?
Don't do it to me. They can move an Origin game. Let's be
Yeah.
fair. It's
I'm
keep
the
Magic Round at home.
same,
Yeah,
yeah.
keep it at
I'm
home.
the
Yeah,
same.
keep Magic Round. Yeah, that's very selfish. But yeah, but how good's Magic Round and Suncorp, Brian? Like, let's be fair, it's the best thing ever. So
Yeah.
let's keep it as is from that point of view. Last question for the battery of questions we've got through so far. Your top 3 favorite all-time Supercoach players, Brian. They can be current, they can be retired. Who are the people that you absolutely froth on from a Supercoach point of view that might be a bit left field?
Mate, we said we were going through our list, and there's a lot of Warriors. A lot of Warriors in
So
our
many.
nominations, just like days of the share house living, watching Saturday afternoon. Was Vossi on the call. I mean, we've said it that many times. But yeah, Conrad Hurrell for me, like my big thing, as soon as I got asked this question for Supercoach players, I go straight to draft because that's kind of been we've pretty heavily gotten into classic, particularly since starting this show over the last couple of years. But I'd say our big one was draft. Certainly it's been our number one game. And I always think about the guys who I love to draft. And my thing with center wings is I'd wait every year and just draft your Conrad Hurrells. Your Conrad Hurrells, your like Tane Milne, these kind of guys who are just nuggets. They're not the quickest guys around, but they love throwing a stupid offload. They love busting tackles. And Conrad was just so exciting to watch. And every week, if he was in my draft side,
So good.
oh, mate, it's just so much enjoyment watching Conrad do his thing back in the day. Even when he went to the Titans, he was still doing it. So, and I think he's still doing it over in the UK. I wanted him to be, he was like my big, I wanted the Finns to sign him as like in their inaugural thing, just because, Connie was my boy. So Connie, probably a listener of the Sponge, shout out, mate. You're an absolute gem. Sean Johnson, mate, not much more needs to be said. I mean, just not the best Supercoach scorer in many seasons, but just somebody who he's so exciting to watch, full stop. But then you add in if you owned him and it just, insane. And then the niche one was Bryce Cartwright. I think, look, this is testing me, but it might have been like 2017, James, somewhere around there. I drafted him real late. I remember I think it was our home league, and mate, he averaged like, it would have been 80 or 90 when
It's 80
people,
something. It was insane.
when people weren't averaging 60 plus. And it was just Bryce Cartwright, just absolutely wheeling and dealing. I was all about it. So much so that I drafted him in the first round the next year, and he absolutely sucked. But it doesn't matter. I don't remember that part. I remember the year that I owned him, and he was so good. So yeah, they're my noms. And yeah, mate, I could name. Yeah, we could do a whole podcast on this, but yeah, give me your 3.
Yeah, Cardi Party's a great one, mate. That was where the birth of Cardi Party happened, wasn't it? It was just
Mm.
offloads everywhere, line break assists, line breaks, all of it. It was all good. So I've got some pretty obscure ones, actually. Cam Smith, I just loved having at 9 from a Supercoach point of view because I just loved him as a player. He was by far my favorite player.
Missionary
He's
sex, but
easily
the best of missionary sex,
100%
yeah.
the best because you got it every week and you got the best of it every week from Cam. On that, I think we better have him in Origin camp this year, Brian. Otherwise, I'm scared. I'm very, very scared for the output of the Queensland team because he wasn't there last year and look what happened. So we need a talisman there. We need Cam Smith there. This is a call out to Cam if you're a Magic Sponge listener, and I'm sure you are, Cam. Please, please, please be in camp this year for the boys, or even just be in the sheds on game day. I'll take that. Like, I just need some Cam Smith about me. Ultimate safety in your Supercoach team, ultimate safety from a Queensland Maroons point of view. Cam Smith is easily the GOAT in my opinion in rugby league. He's career speaks for itself. But then I've got Manu Vatuvei here. So Manu obviously had a had a fairly checkered off the field career post football, which I won't speak to too much. But on the field, Brian, like, is there ever been a bloke who's been like more hot or cold, more rocks or diamonds? He was the absolute ultimate. And it didn't matter like what would be happening. Whenever the ball went his way, you initially sweated, "Oh my god, is this gonna catch it?" And then when he did, you're like, "Oh, he's gonna destroy someone." When he did, and then if he didn't destroy someone, it was like there'd be this rank offload that comes out the back that goes to no one. He was the best. He was the best for Supercoach because it was just those ultimate like little stats that you'd add in. It was like hit up over 8, offload, line break, line assist,
3
he'd get a
tackle
try.
bust, yeah.
There were some games he had like, this was before base and power were really big. There'd be some games he'd score like 60 in base as a winger, which was just insane at the time. It was never consistent, but it was always the best watch because you had Sean Johnson in the game, you had Connie Hara on the right edge. Then when they spin it left, you like get it to Manu, and then inevitably he'd drop a few over the line and you'd be spewing, but then he'd score one from nowhere and you'd be cheering. He was the best for Supercoach. In a similar vein, the very last one I've gone for is Semi Radradra. Those couple of years for the Parrot Eels when he was scoring everything from everywhere, long range tries. He was just housing things. He was the best to watch. He was a guy that in the center wing, when guys went barely scoring 60 average, I guess, in that sort of era, he was scoring like 75, 80. I had him in a couple of drafts. I think one year especially where he scored, basically a try a week, if not more. It was the best. You just tune into the Eels and you're like, oh, Sammy's going to score some tries here. And he'd score some outrageous ones. Like the one that always sticks in my brain is that one he scored against the Rabbitohs where he went full field, weaved in and out, dummy, didn't get touched, ran 80. It was unbelievable. But Semi Radradra, I was so sad when I saw him go to, overseas rugby union because he was such a huge, huge loss to our game. I thought he was absolutely elite and absolutely electric. So yeah, there's some pretty niche ones from a Supercoach point of view, mate. Good
I
times,
love
though,
it.
good
I
memories.
love it, mate. And let's roll on because we've got our Supercoach juices. We're soaked in Supercoach
We
juices,
are.
mate. At the moment,
We
we are
are.
absolutely soaked. So let's go on to Supercoach Corner, mate. I think this week it looks like there wasn't too much movement. I think most people scored relatively within maybe 100, 150 of one another. But this is where it gets really interesting. We're past that first big buy. This is kind of like launch time now. Next week, it's a bit of a mini buy, a bit of a tricky one. What are your plans moving forward?
So this week I hit 1,007 as it stands at the moment. I hit Lehigh Hopewadi on the VC. So that was, I don't know if anyone else in Supercoach actually had him as VC, but I was like, well, he's due for some meat. I just had a vibe about it, and I was absolutely riding him home for that third try. I was absolutely up and about, Brian. And when I saw the elbow go down in touch, he was a micro penis away from a third try and that turbo assist. So I was absolutely stinging when I was watching the game. I was spewing. The three trades I made were Dylan Egan out, Selwyn Colbo out, Kalyn Ponga out, and I traded in Tom Trbojevic, Lehigh Hopewadi, as I mentioned there. And I went early on Keon Kolomatangi. I just thought, with the mini buy this week and the Bunnies, I really wanted to get a piece of Keon early doors. So I've got 174 grand to play with this week. My first trade's probably Pacifica Tonga at front row forward in for Tui Vardy. So Tui Vardy has a syndesmosis injury and surgery, so he'll be out till at least 18 or 19. Gives me an extra 100 grand that I can upgrade Vine Marga to Ewan Aiken, who's probably, I think when I looked at Ewan Aiken's ownership, mate, I think only 380 people have him in Supercoach. He's not owned by anybody. Like it's like 0.00.01. And we talked about this midweek, so I was sort of stealing the thunder there a little bit on Ewan Aiken, but I really like him at price there for the Bunnies. On the Dragons, like even Pacifica Tonga, I think the Dragons are really handy to have between now and the rest of the year because they only had the round 16 mini buy, so they play the rest of the year. They don't have a lot on offer, but I guess when you think Christian Tuipulotu is going to be back from injury soon, I think he's massive at centre wing. Jade Sewer doesn't look like he's getting a sniff for Origin, so he's probably solid enough at second row. And the other one who played nearly 80 minutes the previous week was Damien Cook. So if he plays that sort of hybrid 13 role because they're short on middles and Jacob Little starts playing a lot more, Damien Cook at 450 at a position like hooker, which is dreadful, he's 2% owned. I don't mind that at all, but I think it might be worth a wait and watch this week to see what the role looks like as part of that Dragons team. But definitely keep a close eye on Damien Cook for those guys playing at home. Other options after this week, I guess my round 13 plans probably get a bit weird because of Lockie Galvin saga. So if he's moving to the Bulldogs ASAP, then my Connor Tracy Magic Round selection looks really dire. So I'm going to have to move Connor Tracy and move him quick. I might even have to move him this week. Who knows? And I think the other one is Matt Burton. Probably looks like a trade-in because he's bottomed out in price. He's got the goal-kicking boots still. I think going Munster to him after this week, after the bye, looks like a really good shout. RTS looks really good again, but he doesn't cover 15 or 18, so I would have been keen, but he doesn't cover those ones, which makes him a no-go. On Christian Tuipulotu, the other person I'm really aiming for is Jarrell Skelton because the Tigers have a buy in round 15, and I think if you can get Jarrell Skelton in round 16, they only have another buy in round 21 or 22 or something like that, or 23. I can't remember exactly when it is, but I think Jarrell Skelton's one that you probably want in your centre wing setups by the end of the year. He's got a 99 break even rolling through him with a 480 grand price tag. So if he comes back in 13 or 14, has the buy in round 15, he is up in lights for me for round 16. I think he's a really, really, really good get. So that'd be the left of field options, I think, from a trade-in perspective. As it stands at the moment, Brian, I've got 13 players for round 15, so I've got enough, and I've got 16 players for round 18, and I've got 19 for round 19. So they're probably my trickiest ones to cover. The Payne Haas situation I'm watching closely there, Brian. What are your thoughts on Payne Haas as it sort of pertains to your team, and how'd you get along this week?
Yeah, mate. I was 974 this week. So and probably the Payne Haas situation. I think there were a couple of things that happened during the week that kind of had me going a bit left field with my trades. So number one was Payne Haas, and number two was Tommy Turbo. So we heard Tommy Turbo had the cork, and I said, "Oh, look, it didn't give me enough confidence to buy him, but it made me go. I think Teddy and him as my third fullback is a real conversation now." And then we got the Payne Haas thing where is he going to back up? Is he not? These kind of things. I was like, oh, I really want the ability and kind of flexibility to move guys around and not be locked in to guys like, for example, trading Teddy and then not having and then not being able to get Turbo if he lit it up, or locking it in so it was kind of like I had to keep Haas if I want to trade him. So I went and brought in Erin Clark at flex for Kalyn Ponga, which was a bit of a weird one, but it was because I wanted to bring in Keon and Ewan Aitken for Kiraz and Dylan Egan. So I brought them in to shore up my 15 and 18 numbers. But also, like you mentioned Aitken there, mate, we were talking about him during the week, and I'll credit Maxi Bryden from SC Playbook put this up I think it was either during the week or it might have even been last week. But like comparing Zach Hosking and him, because that's kind of who I was tossing up in between. So Hosking had like 52 base plus power average. Ewan Aitken's base plus power average is 72, mate, since he's been playing 80 minutes on an edge. So that kind of was big for me. And also just that, like, they both missed the 19 mini buy, which I reckon at the moment for me, round 19 is the hardest for me. I'm finding the actual buy is quite easy to get 13 players. I've already got 12 for 15. I've got 14 for round 18. So I'm pretty set there. It's round 19, needing 17 players, origin backups, that kind of thing. So jumped on Ewan Aitken and Keon. So now I've got Clark at flex, and I can kind of just see how origin goes from a perspective of, is there any backline injuries? Does Dylan Edwards go down? Does that mean Teddy's locked in for game 2? Is there a winger injury, and is Turbo a chance to come in for that? But also I can now wait on the Payne Haas backing up news. I can be like, is he going to back up? Is he not? Because the minute it comes in that he isn't going to back up, if that is what comes through, I can go Erin Clark up to the forward pack, and I can bring in anyone for Payne, because I can go down the flex. I can bring a fullback, CT, like whatever I want at that point in time, which gives me a lot of flexibility. So I'm not very good at SuperCoach a lot of the time, James, but I feel like I've nailed this week. Like I'm really happy because Turbo didn't go bonkers. Teddy didn't go bonkers. The guys, what's his name? Zach Hosking didn't go bonkers either, the other guy who I was kind of tossing up in between. So I'm pretty happy with how it's all kind of played out. I can now sit back this week with a lot of, I've still got 250K in the bank as well. And I can kind of just let it all play out and see what happens. So the big thing for me is Origin backups, the main two being Payne Haas and Nathan Cleary. If Cleary doesn't back up, I wouldn't mind selling him to like a Jerome Hughes or a Jaden Campbell, are kind of the two that I'm eyeing off there. I'm still, I don't mind Burton. The big thing with Burton that gives me pause is this whole Lockie Galvin thing. And like, where does Burton fit in the new system and what are they going to do there? That's the only pause I have with him, but I still don't mind him as a buy. And then if Payne doesn't back up, I like Eli Katoa, Tui Pilotu. Lomax is one. It's a weird thing to say because he is playing Origin, but they will not miss any of the mini buys. And once again, I'm looking at the mini buys as almost as difficult as the actual buys, and I don't think they're going to rest Lomax. So I like him as a bit of a pod play, even if you're still going for overall, just to kind of cover those mini buys. Or I could just go Haas to one of the fullbacks, either Teddy or Turbo, if I want to go that way as well. So yes, I'm pretty happy with the position I'm in. I'm going to be really fluid, but they're kind of the guys I've got my eye on at the moment. I think if Haas and Cleary both back up, I'm just going to roll with both of them. And then the only trade I'd consider would be like maybe a Corey Horsburgh to one of those guys, maybe an Eli Katoa or a Tui Pilotu or something like that, or even a Turbo potentially. But yeah, they're probably the main ones. I think Hughes and Campbell, Eli Katoa, Tui Pilotu, Lomax, or Teddy or Turbo. They're kind of like the guys outside of that. I probably don't have a heap of interest in any others until like after round 15. So maybe I'll save a few trades, but I doubt it because I just keep going hard. I think that's a good question for you, James, I know I get asked this all the time. Like, just to make you feel better about yourself, because I'm sure you've got more trades than me. I've only got 19 trades left. So
Yeah, I've got 20.
Yeah, so I've been burning hard, and I'm going to keep burning hard. So, if you've got, I'm sure 90% of people out there have got more trades than me. So don't feel bad about your trade situation if an idiot like me has even less than you. So, mate, I mean, have I missed anything there? I mean, Eli Katoa and Jerome Hughes probably pretty red hot. I think they play the Titans, so that is pretty salivating to me.
That's
So
a
I
good
think,
shout.
I think that looks like a matchup to expose.
I think you've got Drinkwater as well. I think if you don't have Drinkwater, you don't have to go this week because his break even's about 149, I think, from memory, or something like that, Brian. So I don't think you have to go there. That's why I didn't list him in mine. And I've got Turbo that I'm going to roll through there for at least a couple of weeks and just see what happens. So hopefully Drinkwater might bottom out a little bit and I can get him on the scoop. Maybe I'll move Tedesco to him. Maybe I'll move Turbo to him. I don't know. I think
Mate,
Drinkwater's got to be in your plan.
the other
Because he
thing
plays all the
is,
games.
but also like, I think the component, which you don't know if it contributed or not, but Jackson Purdue at 5'8", did that kill Drinky a little bit? Like, I don't understand. I saw an article the other day where apparently Jake Clifford's been told he's in cup for the rest of the year. And I'm just like, mate, if there's Todd Payton, we've spoken about it. Like, what? Like, I don't know. I'm not the biggest Jake Clifford fan, but I think they won 4 from 5 when he was starting. So, like, I just
Well,
don't.
even in the same breath, mate, Tom Duffy played the first 3 games, and Todd Payton played like Taumalolo and Nanai in reserve grade,
Yeah.
and was like, "Oh, here you go, rookie half. Like, go win a game with our like B grade team." It's like, what are you doing? So he flicked Tom Duffy after 3 weeks, I think, from memory, and it was just I've never seen a rookie half being managed worse. It was like not only do you just put him to the wolves, but then you put him in there with like your second string team. It was insane. And then he did the same thing with Clifford. He just said, "Oh yeah, we're going to play Purdue at 6 now. Like you're going to play Cup." It's wild, mate. Like I wouldn't have any begrudges with those guys just being like, "I'm tapping out. Get me out of here. I'm going to go somewhere different. If this is your vision for the club, then I'm not here for it." Like, and just get your Isaac Moses on and just get out of there. Like, pull a Lockie Galvin for all I care. Like, I think, you can look at those situations, Lockie Galvin, and be like, "That's grim." But then there's stuff like this that you feel like, how would you feel being treated in that scenario like that? I think that's absolutely wild. I don't understand it as well.
Yeah, so I reckon regardless of Drinky's break even, I think you have to eyeball what this new Cowboys setup looks like. Because like there definitely is a world where Drinky is handicapped by by the new setup, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really good shout, mate. No, I don't think any other things apart from the Drinkwater one. He was the one that we sort of haven't put up in lights here. But tell you what, Tuipulotu with only one mini buy left is really attractive. Like, I think he's just put up so many points. It's probably a good question to ask about the Dragons' left edge. I can remember Corey Allen scoring one try each week or thereabouts. So I think if he scores one, he's still averaging one try a week on that left edge. It's still a gold mine for fantasy, isn't it?
100%. All right, guys. We have done real well, James, in a pretty boring injury week. We're here at an hour and 20 minutes. So congratulations to anybody who listened along. But this is the Bryan and James Vanity Hour on a Sunday night. We like to talk injuries and we like to talk Supercoach. So yeah, that's a wrap for this week. If you like the pod, please give us a review or recommend to a friend. The old 5-star reviews help us get our ugly noggins in front of other people. Give us a thumbs up on YouTube, those kind of things. Really helps the show. But otherwise, James, Origin prediction. We all know who's going to win, but give me man of the match. I think is probably always the biggest one. Who's going to get man of the match?
Man of the match, I'm going to go with Paddy Carrigan for man of the match. And I think Queensland get home in a squeezy game. I think about 18-16 or 2018 in that sort of range would be my call. Yourself?
Mate, I think it's time for Cam Munster. Like, he needs to stand up. I just think he needs to have like the 2020 Cam Munster needs to come back. I think it's time. He hasn't really, in those big games, he's let like Liam Martin get under his skin and he kind of hasn't played like those Cam Munster games. I'm looking for a Cam Munster game. So I think Cam Munster for man of the match, and obviously Queensland to win by squillion, hopefully. But yeah, otherwise, guys, thanks for listening. And as always, up the mighty, mighty Redcliffe Dolphins.
Suspect